Afternoon, sir. You know why I stopped you?
No, officer, not exactly.
License and registration, please.
The following is a script designed for a long-form immersive storytelling video. It is written to be narrated at a measured cinematic pace, focusing on atmosphere, character psychology, and legal detail. The afternoon light on Oak Creek Drive was deceptive. It was that specific time of day, just past 4 o'clock in early September, when the sun hangs low and heavy, casting long golden shadows across the manicured lawns. It paints everything in a warm, nostalgic glow that suggests safety. It suggests a world where everything is in its right place, where the chaos of the city is kept at bay by wrought iron gates and neighborhood watch signs. It is the kind of silence that feels expensive. In this neighborhood, in the quiet enclave of Fairhaven, just 30 miles outside of the city limits, the residents paid a premium for tranquility. They paid for the certainty that when they walked their dogs or checked their mailboxes, the world would be predictable. But tranquility is often a fragile thing, easily shattered by the intrusion of reality. And on this particular Wednesday, that reality was approaching in the form of a black and white patrol cruiser, moving silently like a shark in shallow water. Before we dive into the events that would turn this quiet street into a national headline, take a second to check your surroundings. Are you watching this from the comfort of your home, from your office? We often think we are safe in our daily routines, but as we are about to see, safety is sometimes just a matter of perspective. If you appreciate deep dive storytelling that exposes the truth behind the badge, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. We uncover the stories the system tries to bury. Driving ahead of that patrol cruiser was a silver 2024 Genesis G80. The car was a masterpiece of engineering, its paint gleaming under the filtered sunlight, its movements precise and controlled. Behind the wheel sat a man who understood the concept of control better than most. Attorney Elias Thorne was not just a driver, he was a man who lived his life by a strict code of conduct, a code written in the statutes of state law and the amendments of the Constitution. Elias was 42 years old, though the sharp lines of his face and the intensity of his gaze often made him appear older, more weathered by the storms he had weathered in courtrooms across the state. He was a man of immense discipline. His suit, a bespoke charcoal gray, was immaculate despite having been worn for 10 hours. His tie was perfectly knotted. His hands resting lightly on the leather steering wheel at 10 and 2 were steady. He was coming from a war zone. Not a battlefield of tanks and soldiers, but the battlefield of the county courthouse. Elias Thorne was a criminal defense strategist, a title he had earned through 2 decades of dismantling weak cases and exposing corrupt investigations. He had spent the day arguing a suppression motion, fighting to exclude evidence that had been obtained through an illegal search. He had won. He almost always won, not because he was lucky, but because he knew the rules of the game better than the people who had written them. He was tired, the kind of bone-deep fatigue that comes from high-stakes intellectual combat. All he wanted was the sanctuary of his home, a glass of iced tea, and the silence of his back patio. He checked his speedometer. 35 miles per hour, exactly the posted limit. He checked his mirrors. The road behind him was clear, save for the single vehicle that had turned onto Oak Creek Drive a few blocks back. Elias watched the vehicle in his rearview mirror. He noted the light bar on the roof. He noted the push bumper on the front grille. A Fairhaven Police Department cruiser. Elias didn't panic. He didn't flinch. He simply cataloged the information. He checked his own driving again. He was in his lane. His registration tags were valid, renewed just last month. His seatbelt was fastened. He was breaking no laws. But Elias Thorne was also a black man in America, driving a luxury sedan through a neighborhood that historically had not been welcoming to people who looked like him. He knew that in the eyes of certain officers, his existence in this space was in itself a violation of an unwritten code. Behind him, inside the cruiser, the air conditioning was blasting, fighting the lingering summer heat. Officer Trent Baines sat behind the wheel, his eyes hidden behind polarized aviator sunglasses. Baines was 39 years old, with 15 years on the force. He was a man who wore his authority like a second skin, comfortable, heavy, and impenetrable. Officer Baines was bored. It had been a slow shift. A few parking citations, a noise complaint that turned out to be a gardener with a leaf blower, and a lot of driving in circles. He was looking for something. He didn't know what, exactly. He just knew he wanted to find something that didn't fit. He called it his wolf instinct. His supervisors called it aggressive policing. Civil rights attorneys called it something else entirely. Baines saw the silver Genesis ahead of him. He saw the gleam of the expensive paint. He saw the silhouette of the driver, and immediately a circuit closed in his mind. It wasn't a conscious thought process involving penal codes or traffic statutes. It was a bias algorithm that had been running in his background operating system for 15 years. Nice car, quiet street, black driver, out of place. Baines accelerated slightly, closing the gap. He wanted to see a reaction. He wanted to see the driver check the mirror nervously. He wanted to see a swerve, a tap of the brakes, a failure to signal, anything that would give him the thin veneer of justification he needed. But the Genesis didn't swerve. It didn't speed up. It continued at exactly 35 miles per hour, gliding over the asphalt with infuriating calmness. "Come on," Baines muttered to the empty cabin of his cruiser. "Give me something." There was nothing. No broken taillight, no expired tag, no erratic lane change. But for Officer Trent Baines, the absence of a violation was suspicious in itself. Who drives that perfectly? Who is that careful? Someone hiding something. That was the logic. It was circular, it was flawed, and it was dangerous. But in that moment, it was enough for him. He reached down and flipped the toggle switch on his console. The silence of Oak Creek Drive was sliced open by the sudden eruption of red and blue light. The strobes bounced off the manicured hedges and the brick facades of the colonial-style houses. Inside the Genesis, Elias Thorne saw the explosion of color in his rearview mirror. He let out a long, slow breath through his nose. He didn't slam the brakes. He didn't curse. He simply activated his right turn signal, 3 blinks, 4 blinks, and gently guided the car to the shoulder of the road. He brought the vehicle to a complete stop. He put the transmission in park. He lowered all 4 windows, not just the driver's side, allowing full visibility into the vehicle. He turned off the engine, and then he did 2 things that would change the trajectory of Officer Baines' life forever. First, he took his cell phone from the center console, mounted it on the dashboard holder facing the driver's side window, and tapped the screen. The app was already open. The button turned red. Live. Second, he placed his hands on the top of the steering wheel, fingers spread wide, and waited. He was streaming to a private server, accessible only to his firm's paralegals and senior partners. It was a protocol they had established years ago. The SHIELD protocol. Whenever a firm member was stopped, the firm was watching. Now I want to pause here for a second. Put yourself in that driver's seat. You've done nothing wrong. You're tired. You just want to go home. And suddenly, you have to prepare for a potentially life-altering confrontation. How would you react? Would you be angry? Would you be terrified? Let me know in the comments below what goes through your mind when you see those lights in your mirror. Officer Baines exited his cruiser. He adjusted his belt, feeling the weight of the radio, the taser, the firearm, the handcuffs, the tools of his trade. He walked with a specific gait, chest out, arms slightly away from his sides. It was a walk designed to intimidate. It was a walk that said, "I own this street." He approached the driver's side. He noticed the open windows. He noticed the hands on the wheel. Usually, this level of compliance made him suspicious, but today, he took it as a sign of submission. He liked submission. He stopped at the B pillar, just behind the driver's line of sight, a tactical position designed to disadvantage the driver. He peered in. Elias Thorne did not turn his head. He stared straight ahead through the windshield, his profile sharp and unreadable. "Afternoon," Baines said. He didn't offer a rank or a name. It wasn't a greeting, it was a probe. "Good afternoon, officer," Elias replied. His voice was a rich baritone, steady and devoid of fear. It was the voice he used when cross-examining a hostile witness, controlled, precise. "Do you know why I stopped you?" Baines asked. The classic opener, a trap designed to get the driver to admit to a fault they might not even be aware of. "I do not," Elias said. "I was traveling at the speed limit. I signaled my movements. My vehicle is in full compliance with state equipment codes. Perhaps you could enlighten me." Baines frowned. He didn't like the vocabulary, "enlighten me." It sounded arrogant. It sounded like someone who didn't know their place. "Your car looks a little out of place for this neighborhood," Baines said. He let the words hang in the humid air. He watched the driver's face, waiting for the flinch, the excuse, the nervous stammer. Elias slowly turned his head to look at the officer. For the first time, Baines saw the eyes. They were cold, analytical, and incredibly sharp. "With all due respect, officer," Elias said, "looking out of place is not a violation of the traffic code, nor is it a violation of the penal code. I'm asking for the legal basis of this stop." Baines felt a prickle of heat on the back of his neck. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. "I'm checking to see what's going on. We've had some burglaries in the area. Just doing my due diligence." "That is a generalized investigation," Elias countered smoothly. "It does not constitute reasonable suspicion to detain a specific motorist. Unless you have a specific articulable fact linking this vehicle or myself to a specific crime, this stop is unconstitutional." The air between them seemed to crackle. Baines shifted his weight. He rested his hand near his holster. A subtle threat. A reminder of who held the physical power. "Look, sir," Baines said, his voice dropping an octave, becoming harder. "I'm asking the questions here. Keep your hands where I can see them." "My hands have not moved from the wheel since I stopped the vehicle," Elias noted. "I am complying with your safety requirements. However, I am also asserting my Fourth Amendment rights. You have stated no traffic violation. You have stated no equipment failure. You have admitted your suspicion is based on the appearance of the car in this neighborhood. That is the definition of profiling." Officer Trent Baines had been on the force for 15 years. He had conducted over 3,000 traffic stops. He had been the subject of 8 internal affairs complaints, mostly for discourtesy and excessive force. He had never been disciplined. The union always made it go away. The department always swept it under the rug. He was used to winning. But he had never met Elias Thorne. "License and registration," Baines snapped. He was done with the conversation. He wanted to run the ID, find a warrant, find a reason to drag this guy out of the car. "I am reaching for my wallet in my right inside jacket pocket." Elias narrated his actions clearly for the camera and the officer. "I am reaching for the glove box for my registration." He moved slowly. He handed the documents through the window. Baines snatched them. Baines looked at the license. Elias James Thorne. The address was in the city, an upscale high-rise district, not Fairhaven. "Gotcha," Baines thought. "He doesn't live here." "You don't live on this street," Baines said, looking up. "I do not," Elias replied. "Is residency a requirement for driving on a public road in Fairhaven?" "What are you doing here?" Baines demanded. "I am traveling," Elias said, "which, under the Constitution, I have a right to do without harassment." Baines's jaw clenched. He was losing control of the interaction. He could feel it slipping away, and his instinct was to grab it back with force. "Step out of the car," Baines ordered. Elias paused. "For what purpose, officer? Under Pennsylvania v. Mims, you may order a driver out of the vehicle, but usually that is for officer safety or to investigate a crime. You have articulated neither." "I don't have to explain myself to you," Baines shouted. The veneer of professionalism shattered. "Step out now, or I will remove you." Elias looked directly into the lens of the smartphone mounted on his dash. He knew his team was watching. He knew the recording was secure. "I am complying under duress," Elias stated clearly. "I fear for my physical safety, and I am following the officer's commands to avoid violence, though I maintain this order is unlawful." He opened the door. Elias stepped out of the vehicle. He stood 6 feet 2 inches tall, taller than Officer Baines. He stood straight, his posture impeccable. He didn't slouch. He didn't cower. Baines moved into his personal space immediately. He grabbed Elias's wrist, twisting it slightly, guiding him toward the rear of the vehicle. It was unnecessary contact. It was a power move. "Face the car. Hands on the trunk," Baines barked. Elias complied. The metal of the trunk was warm from the sun. He spread his fingers. "You're making this hard on yourself," Baines muttered, patting down Elias's waist, searching for weapons. He found nothing but a fountain pen and a slim leather wallet. "I am making a record," Elias corrected him softly. "There is a difference." Baines stepped back, frustrated. He had nothing. No drugs, no guns, no warrants. Just a smart-mouthed lawyer in a nice suit who made him feel small, and that was the worst offense of all. Baines keyed his radio. "Dispatch, this is Unit 4 Alpha. I have a subject detained at 400 Oak Creek. Subject is non-compliant, hostile, requesting a supervisor and backup." Elias listened to the lies broadcast over the airwaves. Non-compliant. He had followed every order. Hostile. He hadn't raised his voice once, but Elias Thorne knew this game. He knew that in the police report, hostile meant knew his rights. He knew that non-compliant meant didn't say thank you for the harassment. "You just lied to dispatch," Elias said, facing the trunk. "That is a violation of department policy and a falsification of official records." "Shut up," Baines snapped. "One more word, and you're going in for disorderly conduct." "Disorderly conduct requires public disruption," Elias recited. "There is no public here, just you, me, and the camera." Baines froze. "Wow, what camera?" "The one on my dashboard," Elias said. "It's been live streaming since before you turned on your lights. My firm is recording everything, including the part where you admitted you stopped me because my car looked out of place." Baines looked at the dashboard of the Genesis. He saw the phone, the red dot. The realization hit him like a physical blow to the stomach, but instead of backing down, he doubled down. Panic does that to people who are used to unchecked power. It makes them irrational. "That's illegal wiretapping," Baines claimed, grasping at straws. "Illinois is a two-party consent state for private conversations, but public officials performing public duties in public spaces have no expectation of privacy." Elias cited effortlessly. First Circuit, Glick ver Cunife. Seventh Circuit, ACLUV Alvarez. I have a right to record. The sound of another siren approached. A second cruiser whipped around the corner, followed by an SUV with supervisor stenciled on the door. Sergeant Robert Miller stepped out of the SUV. Miller was a veteran, gray hair, tired eyes, a man who just wanted to make it to retirement without a scandal. He saw Baines standing aggressively behind a man in a charcoal suit. He saw the expensive car. He saw the lack of any visible crash or contraband. Miller walked up, his demeanor calmer, more assessing. "What do we have here, Baines?" Miller asked. Subject was driving suspiciously. Baines said quickly, trying to control the narrative. Refused to answer questions. Became hostile. I had to pull him out for safety. Miller looked at Elias Thorne. Elias turned his head slowly to face the sergeant. "Sergeant," Elias said, "my name is Elias Thorne. I am an attorney with the firm Thorne, Bradley and Associates. I have been unlawfully detained for approximately 12 minutes. Your officer has articulated no probable cause and no reasonable suspicion other than his opinion that my vehicle does not belong in this neighborhood." Sergeant Miller froze. The name hit him like a bucket of ice water. Thorne. He squinted. He recognized the face now. He had seen it on the news. He had seen it in legal briefings. This was the man who had sued the city of Sterling 3 years ago. Thorne v. City of Sterling. The case that had cost that municipality $4 million and forced a complete rewrite of their stop and frisk policies. This was the man known in police circles as the Reaper, the man who ended careers. Miller looked at Baines. Baines looked confused. He didn't know the name. He didn't follow the politics. He just saw a guy he wanted to jam up. "Baines," Miller said, his voice dangerously low. "Did he commit a traffic violation?" He was driving too carefully. It was suspicious." Miller closed his eyes for a brief second. He inhaled deeply. He could practically see the lawsuit drafting itself in the air above them. "Get in your car," Miller ordered Baines. "Sarge, Get in your car." The tone brokered no argument. Baines released Elias and stepped back, bewildered. He sulked back to his cruiser, still not understanding the magnitude of the cliff he had just driven off. Miller turned to Elias. His posture changed completely. It wasn't submissive, but it was respectful. It was the respect one soldier shows another when they realize they are outgunned. "Mr. Thorne," Miller said, "I apologize. You can step away from the vehicle." Elias straightened his jacket. He brushed an invisible speck of dust from his sleeve. He turned to face Miller. "Sergeant, your officer assaulted me. He filed a false report over the radio. He detained me based on racial profiling, and it is all on video." Miller nodded grimly. "I understand, sir." "I don't want an apology, Sergeant," Elias said, his voice cold as steel. "I want his badge number, I want your badge number, and I want the incident report number." "You'll have it all," Miller promised. "You are free to go, Mr. Thorne. Again, I regret this interaction." "Regret," Elias said, looking toward the cruiser where Baines sat fuming, "is what comes next." Elias got back into his car. He didn't speed away. He put on his seatbelt. He checked his mirrors. He signaled. He merged back onto the roadway. As he drove away, he looked in the rearview mirror one last time. He saw Sergeant Miller standing by the window of Baines's cruiser, animated, gesturing wildly. Baines looked small now. The wolf had become the sheep. It's easy to feel a sense of satisfaction in that moment, isn't it? The bully gets put in his place. The hero drives off into the sunset. But life isn't a movie where the credits roll and everything is fixed. The trauma of that stop remains. The adrenaline dump, the fear, the humiliation of being handled like a criminal on the side of the road. That doesn't just vanish because you won the argument. If you've ever felt powerless in the face of authority, hit the like button, because what happens next is for you. It's for everyone who didn't have a law degree or a live stream to protect them. The offices of Thorne, Bradley, and Associates were located on the 34th floor of a glass tower in downtown Chicago. The view was spectacular, looking out over the lake, but no one was looking at the view. The entire legal team was gathered in the conference room. On the main screen, the footage from the stop was playing. "Stop there," Elias said. The video froze on Officer Baines's face as he said, "I don't have to explain myself." "That's the moment," said Sarah Jenkins, Elias's lead civil rights partner. "Qualified immunity doesn't cover willful violation of established rights." He refused to provide a reason because he didn't have one. Thorne v. Sterling established that specific articulable facts must be presented upon request if the detention is prolonged. "We have the dispatch logs too," another associate added. "He called you hostile 3 seconds before you calmly explained the law. The dashcam audio from his own cruiser will corroborate the lies." Elias sat at the head of the table. He wasn't angry anymore. He was in work mode. He was a surgeon preparing to cut out a tumor. We don't just sue the city, Elias said. We name Baines personally. We go after the department for failure to train. We pull his file. If he did this to me, he's done it to others. I want every stop he's made in the last 5 years reviewed. They found them. It took less than 48 hours of discovery once the suit was filed. The pattern was undeniable. Officer Trent Baines had a habit. He stopped luxury cars. He stopped older cars with young drivers. He stopped rental cars. And in almost every case where the driver was a minority, the probable cause was listed as suspicious behavior or furtive movements. They found a stop from 6 months prior, a woman named Dr. Elena Reese, a pediatric surgeon. She was driving a Mercedes. Baines had stopped her, accused her of stealing the car, and held her on the side of the road for 40 minutes while he verified her ownership. He had threatened her with a felony. She had cried. She had been terrified. She hadn't sued because she just wanted to forget it happened. There were dozens of them. The lawsuit, Thorn vs. Officer Trent Baines and the City of Fairhaven, was filed on a Monday morning. By noon, the body cam footage released by Elias's firm to the press was trending globally. The internet did what the internet does. It dissected the video. Lip readers analyzed Baines's whispers. Legal experts went on cable news to explain exactly how badly Baines had messed up. The City of Fairhaven went into damage control mode. The mayor held a press conference. The police chief promised transparency, but the video was too damning. There was no context that could save them. There was no "he reached for a gun" defense. There was just a calm, well-dressed man citing the Constitution and an angry officer trampling on it. Internal Affairs didn't drag their feet this time. The investigation was swift and brutal. Officer Trent Baines was placed on administrative leave without pay. A week later, he was called into a hearing. We can imagine that room. The fluorescent lights. The union rep sitting silently, knowing there was nothing he could do. The chief of police sliding the badge across the table. Baines was terminated for cause, specifically violation of Fourth Amendment rights, filing a false report, conduct unbecoming of an officer, and gross incompetence. But Elias Thorn wasn't done. A firing allows a cop to go 2 towns over and get hired by a sheriff's department. It's called the gypsy cop phenomenon. Bad officers bounce from department to department. Elias petitioned the State Law Enforcement Standards Board. He submitted the video, the court filings, and the findings of the internal investigation. He demanded decertification. Decertification is the nuclear option. It strips an officer of their license to practice law enforcement in the state. It puts them on a national registry. It means they can never carry a badge or a gun for a living again. 3 months after the stop on Oak Creek Drive, the board voted. The vote was unanimous. Trent Baines was decertified. His career was over. At 39 years old, he had to start over with a Google search result attached to his name that would follow him to every job interview for the rest of his life. The civil suit never went to trial. The City of Fairhaven knew they would lose, and they knew a jury would likely award millions in punitive damages just to send a message. They settled for $750,000. Elias Thorn didn't keep the money. He used it to establish the Fairhaven Legal Defense Fund, a nonprofit dedicated to providing free legal representation to motorists who had been victims of racial profiling in the county. It's a satisfying ending, isn't it? The bad guy loses his job. The good guy wins the money and gives it back to the community. Justice is served, but we have to ask ourselves a difficult question. What if Elias Thorn hadn't been a brilliant attorney? What if he had been a carpenter, a teacher, a nurse? What if he hadn't known the specific case law to quote in the heat of the moment? What if he hadn't had the presence of mind to live stream the encounter? Would Officer Baines have been fired, or would that driver have been dragged out of the car, handcuffed, and charged with resisting arrest? Would Baines be out on patrol right now, looking for the next car that looked out of place? The story of Elias Thorn is a victory, yes, but it is also a warning. It shows us that the system can work, but often only for those who have the tools to force it to work. It highlights the terrifying gap between the law as it is written on paper and the law as it is applied on the street. Accountability shouldn't require a law degree. Safety shouldn't depend on your tax bracket. Officer Baines lost his career because he picked a fight with the wrong man. But the tragedy is that for 15 years, he picked fights with the right men, the ones who couldn't fight back, and the system rewarded him for it. Until we fix that, until accountability is the default and not the exception, every drive home is a potential battlefield. What would you have done in Elias's shoes? Do you think the punishment for the officer was fair, or was it too harsh? And, more importantly, have you ever had an encounter that changed the way you view the police? Share your story in the comments. We read every single one, And if you want to support this channel and help us tell more stories that matter, please hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. The truth is out there, but sometimes you have to dig for it. Thanks for watching. Drive safe.